The smell of burned powder hung thick in the air as the targets slid back and forth, metal clanking like a cold reminder of rules, rankings, and records. At the far end of the shooting range, a man stood alone with shoulders slightly hunched, his boots scuffed, his jacket faded from years of use. No one paid him any attention. The crowd's eyes were fixed on the champion at the center lane, the man whose name echoed through trophies and headlines. No one noticed the single-dad veteran quietly loading his rifle, hands steady not from confidence, but from survival. And no one imagined that his very first shot would shatter a record no one believed could be broken. Before this story unfolds any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet strength of people who are often overlooked, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel name. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. The veteran had learned long ago how to exist without being seen. After the uniform came off, the applause faded fast. Medals went into a small box under his bed, next to old photographs of a smiling woman who never lived long enough to see peace return to his eyes. Now his mornings began before sunrise, packing lunches for his young daughter, tying her shoelaces, brushing her hair with hands that once carried weapons through dust and fire. His world had narrowed to survival, responsibility, and the quiet promise he made at his wife's grave that their child would never feel abandoned. The shooting range was not a place of pride for him. It was a place of memory. The sharp crack of gunfire reminded him of nights that never truly ended, of choices made in seconds that lasted lifetimes. Still, he came, because shooting was one of the few skills that had never left him, one of the few places where his shaking thoughts found order. The range that day was alive with excitement. A regional competition had drawn spectators, sponsors, and the reigning champion, a man whose record shot had been celebrated for years. Banners hung high, cameras rolled, and whispers followed every confident move the champion made. People gathered behind the safety line, holding their breath with every shot, applauding even near-perfect attempts. Meanwhile, the veteran waited patiently for an open lane. He wore no sponsor logo, no polished gear. His rifle was well-maintained but old, the kind of tool built for reliability, not display. When his turn finally came, a few heads turned briefly, then turned away. To them, he was just another outsider, another hobbyist who had wandered into the wrong spotlight. As he took his position, memories pressed in. Not the heroic ones people liked to imagine, but the heavy ones. Long marches under unforgiving suns, the sound of a radio crackling with bad news, the moment he learned his wife was sick while he was thousands of miles away. His chest tightened, not with fear, but with the weight of everything he carried silently. He adjusted his stance the way muscle memory demanded, breathing slow, controlled. This was not about beating anyone. This was about proving something to himself, something he had almost forgotten. That he was still capable. That he was still here. The champion finished his round to thunderous applause, his score flashing across the screen just shy of his own record. People cheered anyway, chanting his name, already convinced they had witnessed the highlight of the day. Officials prepared to close the session, glancing toward the veteran's lane with mild impatience. A few spectators whispered, wondering why the range allowed random participants during an event like this. No one expected anything worth remembering. The veteran raised his rifle. In that moment, the world narrowed to a single point. The noise faded, replaced by a deep, familiar calm. His breathing slowed. His heartbeat aligned with the weight of the rifle against his shoulder. Years of training, loss, and endurance came together in a quiet focus that could not be taught, only earned. When he pulled the trigger, it was not with force, but with intention. The shot rang out, sharp and final. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the screen flickered. Numbers recalculated. A murmur spread through the crowd like a sudden change in wind. Officials leaned forward, eyes wide. The score that appeared was not just impressive. It was impossible. Higher than the champion's best. Higher than the standing record that had defined the sport for years. Silence fell hard and heavy. People stared, confused, then stunned. The champion himself turned, disbelief etched across his face. The veteran lowered his rifle slowly, unsure what the reaction meant. He had not watched the screen yet. He was already bracing for indifference, for dismissal. When an official approached him, hands trembling slightly, and confirmed the result, the veteran felt something crack inside his chest. Not pride. Release. Applause erupted, hesitant at first, then roaring. Cameras swung toward him. Questions flew through the air. Who was he? Where had he trained? Why had no one heard of him before? The veteran stood there, overwhelmed, thinking not of records or recognition, but of his daughter waiting at home, of how he would tell her that sometimes, being ignored did not mean being invisible forever. The days that followed changed everything and nothing at the same time. News outlets picked up the story, calling it an underdog miracle, a hidden talent revealed. Sponsors reached out. Invitations arrived. Yet when the cameras turned off, the veteran still woke before dawn to make breakfast, still packed lunches, still walked his daughter to school. What changed was the way he carried himself. The quiet shame he had never admitted faded, replaced by a steady confidence. He began to understand that his life had value beyond survival. That his past, painful as it was, had forged something rare. The champion publicly acknowledged the shot, praising the discipline and skill behind it. But the most powerful moment came when the veteran returned to the range weeks later, not as an outsider, but as a mentor. Young shooters, some unsure, some struggling, watched him closely. He showed them patience, control, and respect for the craft. He never bragged. He never boasted. He taught them that greatness could come from places no one bothered to look. At home, his daughter noticed the change before anyone else. She saw the way he smiled more easily, the way his eyes softened. One evening, as they sat together in quiet comfort, he realized that the record-breaking shot was never really about competition. It was about reclaiming a piece of himself he thought was lost forever. It was about showing his child that resilience did not always roar. Sometimes, it waited quietly for the right moment to speak. As this story comes close to its end, if this journey of an ignored single-dad veteran finding recognition and healing has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to channel name. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive. And before the final moments fade, we have a special request for you. Please comment below with the words, "Never invisible," if you believe that no one's quiet struggle should ever be overlooked. The veteran still visits the range, but he no longer stands at the edge. He stands tall, not because the world finally noticed him, but because he learned to see his own worth. His story reminds us that some of the strongest people are the ones who wait patiently, carrying love, loss, and responsibility in silence. And sometimes, all it takes is one moment, one chance, one perfectly placed shot, to remind the world that true strength was there all along.